All right, brilliant. We are live and we are good to go. Hopefully, if anyone's listening back to this, hopefully you've all had a good week. Starting to build up to Christmas now, which is great. In terms of my week, I know a lot of people have assignments coming up next week. I know a couple of people in other colleges have assignments piling up, but luckily for me, I've managed to kind of escape all that. I only really have one during the Wednesday, but that's not important. We're going to be here to talk about the news. So, a lot of things have happened in the world this week. Germany's got a new chancellor. What else is there? There's been, I don't know. The world's been shit. If someone was arrested, a father and son, I think, were arrested for potentially starting a wildfire somewhere. I'm not exactly sure if it was Australia or America. Either way, not great. But yeah, the world has kept moving along, and stories have been coming and going. And as you might have seen by the thumbnail of this video, or the title even, we are going to be talking about the massive accumulation of Russian soldiers at the Ukrainian border. So, I guess the Western media has been accusing Russia of planning to invade Ukraine, and they've been getting worried about it. And Biden has warned Putin of sanctions like none he's ever seen before. And I guess the warning comes from the fact, again, as I've said, there's 100,000 troops at the Ukrainian border. Now, Putin has said that it's a defensive measure, but the West doesn't believe that. And I guess to kind of like Ukraine and Russia obviously already have history. In 2014, Russia seized the Crimea, and they back a large-scale separatist force in the east. But the US and Ukraine are fearing that there's a large-scale invasion that's going to happen. And as I said, the Kremlin has denied the plans. And essentially, what Putin has said is that Ukraine is getting too close to the Western NATO military alliance border, essentially that was done. But yeah, this video is going to go a bit more in depth into what's happening at the Ukrainian border, and hopefully, as always, you learn something, because I'm not sure about yous, but for the last 2 videos now that we've done each week, I've learned a lot, so hopefully yous do too. Even if not, if you stick around, that'd be great. So yeah, let's get into the story. So, of course, what we'll talk about first of all is that US intelligence has estimated that the Russians are planning to use an estimated 175,000 troops, and almost half of them are already deployed among various points near Ukraine's border. And the security official who talked about this added that the Russian plans call for the movement of 100 battalion tactical groups along with armor, artillery, and equipment. So this is a very defensive position. And Moscow said it's basically the troop buildup as part of a routine deployment, and it has the right to do what it wants in its territory. Fair enough. And the Kremlin spokesperson has said everything Russia does is on the territory of the Russian Federation, which is also true. So I guess the big question is an invasion likely? So Ukrainian's military command certainly thinks so, and a possible escalation could come at the end of January. So this sounds a bit crass, but like put that in your diaries and then kind of see around then. Experts, however, doubt the likelihood of an offensive, especially since the Ukrainian army has seen significant improvements after more than 7 years of conflict against pro-Russian separatists, which I've mentioned before, in the east. A Russian-Ukrainian confrontation would therefore risk a huge human and financial toll. Moscow's troop surge follows a similar build-up in the spring, when the first fears of an invasion occurred, or emerged, I guess, but never materialized. And some analysts have suggested that Russia's aim was to extract diplomatic benefits. The Kremlin and its army, however, can act quickly, as they did during Moscow's annexation of the Crimea in 2014, which was obviously a big story at the time. I kind of remember it, but yeah. So they've done it before. And since 2014, the US and European allies have worked to bolster Ukraine's military when the army crumpled in the face of Russian pressure. However, there's no appetite for direct military conflict from the Western side either. So I guess what would Putin want out of this? So during a high-stakes video summit on Tuesday with Joe Biden, Putin demanded legal guarantees that NATO will halt its eastward expansion short of Ukraine, which wants to join the alliance but is nowhere near to being accepted into NATO. 12 countries that took part in the founding of NATO in 1949. So I guess this is just a bit of a background on NATO. So there's 12 countries that took part in the founding. Some of these are a bit random. Belgium, Canada, France, Iceland, weirdly, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, the UK, and the US. And there are now 30 countries signed up to NATO, with countries near Ukraine, such as Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia joining over the years. And Putin has basically accused NATO, which was originally set up to counter the Soviet Union, of betraying their promise from the end of the Cold War of not expanding eastwards, which has been seen by the likes of NATO getting Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia into the force. Russia has a peaceful foreign policy, but has the right to defend its security, Putin said on Wednesday. He also added that letting NATO approach Russia's borders without reacting would amount to criminal inaction. The Kremlin has also spent weeks denouncing US-led military exercises in the Black Sea. At the same time, Moscow wants to reconnect with Washington on key issues like strategic stability and Iran, something which both countries have a keen interest in. And despite the tensions that have been in place, the talks on Tuesday between Putin and Biden were described as constructive. So I guess on the other side, we're going to talk about the US. So, after and during his call with Putin, Biden threatened his Russian counterpart with sanctions like he's never seen before. Like I said before, in the event that Russia attacks Ukraine, U.S. options for assisting Ukraine are limited as the country is not in NATO. And the United States has no appetite for direct military confrontation with Russia, as has been seen with the Cold War and all that jazz. Still, the United States helps train Ukrainian forces and has committed more than $2.5 billion to bolster a military, as we've said, that crumpled in the face of Russian pressure in Crimea in 2014. Biden says that deliveries of that kind of defensive capability will be boosted if the conflict escalates. And the US president says the possibility of sending American troops into Ukraine's fight is not on the table. But when it comes to the 9 eastern flank NATO countries, Biden is promising the opposite. So we don't really know. Very mixed messaging. And this is a quote now. We would probably be required to reinforce our presence in NATO countries to reassure those, particularly in the Eastern Front. And I guess where are we now? So Biden yesterday, last week anyway, or this week, phoned the leaders of Ukraine and the 9 Eastern European NATO allies today, promising support if Russia attacks Ukraine, as well as severe economic sanctions against Moscow. So, yeah, this is just basically another rising of tensions between two global superpowers that we definitely haven't seen before. But hopefully it'll blow down. I don't really fancy any sort of war, to be honest. War is bad, displaces people, ruins people's lives. Kind of needless, to be honest, and it'll be probably overblown. Media's probably just hyping it up because they want stories and headlines and stuff. So yeah, just again to reiterate, hopefully there's no war, but I just wanted to deliver this interesting, I guess, or just help, even just for myself, just help myself understand a bit more what the whole conflict is about, and hopefully by me learning about it, hopefully you who are listening to this have learned about it as well. So yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. And I shall see you all next week when I find another interesting news topic that I find interesting or that I want to learn more about, and hopefully you can learn a lot as well. Also, make sure to stay listening to Mars FM. There's Sinead Ante, which is a really interesting podcast, which is in Oscailga or Irish for those who are potentially of an international audience. And we've been really doing well on Mars FM this year, and hopefully you can listen to the rest of the shows and not just mine. Although, listen to mine, obviously, but yeah, you can listen to the other ones as well. So yeah, hopefully everyone enjoys their week. Hopefully everyone gets a bit more excited to Christmas. And yeah, I shall see you all next week with another new episode. All right, goodbye everyone, and have a great week.